Now then, just to put you in the picture, we've just advanced through livery as the head of the 22nd Armoured Brigade. On top of the hill here, there are approximately the first two troops of 4 CLY just arriving at the top of the hill. The plan is to have an O group, an orders group on this point. The brigadier is on his way up, the colonel is on his way up, and various members of the rifle brigade are on their way up in order to take part in that O group. Strung out on the road behind us, we have the rest of A squadron going down to where the motorway crosses. It wasn't there at the time. Behind that, we have a company of the rifle brigade in their half-tracks and carriers. They have a couple of anti-tank guns with them. Behind that, RHQ troop are on the edge of town in 4 tanks. And behind that, just around the corner, there is the OP section of the Royal Horse Artillery, the forward observers for the gunners. Going back into town, you have B squadron of 4 CLY, and behind that, strung along the road, the rest of 22nd Armoured Brigade, including an additional infantry battalion, is arranged along the road. Now, at this vital moment, with all the officers trying to centre on one point, we come across a minor crisis. Across the other side of the field behind us, there is a small detachment of Germans. Unfortunately, this small detachment of Germans happen to be in Tiger tanks, which is the one type of vehicle we have very little answer to. The commander of this unit is one chap called Michael Wittmann, who has run up a cricket score of kills on the Eastern Front, fighting Russian inferior vehicles, and has arrived here very confident in his own abilities. He is the commander of a squadron of tanks, which would normally be 15 Tigers. Fortunately for us, only 5 of them have reached the battlefront, and one of those is in fairly ropey condition. So he is rather surprised on the morning after he's arrived to have a British advance turn up right in front of him. He thought he would have 2 or 3 days of rest and recuperation to get his tanks back into working order, and for the rest of his unit to catch up. So he has to make a decision at that moment. What am I going to do about these beastly British people? He has the devil's luck. He decides that he's going to make a one-man foray against the rest of the unit, saying to the rest of his troops, right, just keep the guys on top of the hill under control. I'm going to see what I can do about cutting them off. So he jumps in the first tank, orders an advance straight towards the road. It's only after they've gone about 20 yards that the gunner explains to him, "This is the broken tank, sir. We're not going very far or very fast." So Wittmann jumps out of that one. It's now cleared the passage because they're in a tiny little narrow alley. He jumps out, jumps into the one behind it. There's now enough room for that one to get through. He ejects the commander of that, curts over, and says, "Organise the rest of the guys. I'm off in your tank." He heads off towards the road. He hits our column at exactly the wrong point from our point of view. He hits the rifle brigade. The first tanks he comes across is the rearmost Firefly, which is our tank that could do something about it. I believe Ken Waitman was in this vehicle, and he is unable to do anything about it. The surprise of the attack has overwhelmed him. He's unable to do anything. His tank is destroyed. Now at that moment, the brigadier is on his way up in a scout car, and is just about to run into this. The driver suddenly slams on the brakes, seeing the commotion on ahead. Last time we were here, we had a chap called George Key, who was the wireless operator in this tiny little vehicle. It's a vehicle designed for 2 people. There's 3 of them in there. He smacks his head against the bulkhead. "What the bloody hell are you doing? There's a tiger in front of us," he says. Suddenly, as the rifle brigade officers are coming up the hill, Sergeant O'Connor in one of those says, "For Christ's sake, get off the road. There's 2 tigers running parallel to us, 50 yards away." So enormous panic is ensuing. There's a tank already gone up. Kurt Sover has climbed into the other tiger. He engages another Firefly. They're purposely aiming at the Fireflies. These are the one tank with a 17-pounder gun that could upset them, so they fire at it. Paddy O'Neill is in one of the Cromwells, who's in amongst the Fireflies further down the hill. They charge off across the hill in trying to get away from the Germans. Wittmann meanwhile, has arrived on the road. He spots off to his left. There's loads of soft skins, easy targets. I can take them out with machine guns. I don't have to expend my expensive ammunition. I can just machine gun them. And he starts to progress down the column, machine gunning these lightly armoured vehicles. Dougie Watt, who is a corporal who's down with the half-tracks, goes to jump back in his vehicle to grab a Piat, anti-tank weapon, and just as he's exiting, his tank is hit. His half-track is hit. It blows up, throws him out. He's knocked unconscious, but he managed to survive. Wittmann continues on down the hill. The first tanks of the CLY he comes across going down towards the junction are two Recce Troop Stuart tanks. Now these are obsolete. These were great in the desert, but now they're just reconnaissance tanks. They have 37mm armoured guns, which are as effective as a pea shooter at firing at the Tiger. Nevertheless, Rex Ingram, the lead commander, puts his tank across the road in order to try and block the Tiger getting down with the road. Obviously that does no good. His tank is knocked out. Unfortunately, Rex is killed. It continues on down the road towards RHQ Troop. Behind that, Sergeant Ferguson's and the other Stuart, his tank's knocked out, managed to get out, and then we come across RHQ Troop. The Colonel is up in 1213, so his tank is taken over by the second in command, Major Carr. Major Carr's managed to get off of the main road into the paddock just to the south, and the gunner reports they turned the tank towards this Tiger as it appeared through the smoking flag, and he managed to fire two shots at about 25 yards range into the side of the Tiger, which both he sees ricochet off into the distance. So the Tiger stops, fires at, destroys the CO's tank, continues on. The next tank is John Cloudesley Thompson's. Now he thought all the firing was coming in from the south, and so he's backed himself into a little gap between the houses with a view to beetling off to the south in order to engage them. And with all the smoke going across the road, the Tiger appears in front of him 40 yards away. And it's at this point he notices that the gun lock is on. So he reaches across to try and unlock the gun so that it can fire, realises there's only no time for that. Just beyond that is the 2-inch smoke thrower. So he fires that, it sailed over the top of the Tiger, so there's no cover from that, and immediately his tank is hit, and he's hit planes. He felt the shell pass between his legs. So the tank behind that, we have our first bit of good fortune of the morning. Pat Dias has backed into a little farmyard. But where this luck is marred is his gunner, just before the action started, had got out for a pee. It's turning into a theme of this one. And so the Tiger passes right in front of him with no one in the gunner's seat to fire. Behind that, Wittmann passes on down the street. Just above the corner, the sergeant, the regimental sergeant major, has been backing down to try and get round the corner. He just about doesn't make it. He runs into some posts that are stacked at the side of the road, gets stuck, and Wittmann takes him out directly through the machine gun on the front of the hull. And Wittmann barrels round the corner, and he is confronted by a group of fleeing vehicles, the two foremost of which are an OP Sherman. An OP Sherman is a Sherman tank which has had the gun removed, a wooden barrel has been put in to make it look like a tank, but the turret is cleared so that you have all your command and control. The crew of it were all out anyway. They got out to find out what was going on, apart from the driver. The driver is Jock Bray, who is here, who we'll be meeting later on. Have a word with him. He is an astonishing chap. He's the only person I know who has escaped through the bottom hatch of a Sherman, which I'll explain. The Tiger sees the OP Sherman and stops and fires at the same time. Jock is delighted about this because he's in the seat. He's put his headgear on and said, enemy tank to front, sir. There's no one else in the tank to hear this, and at that point the Tiger fires just as he stops. Fortunately for him, the shell hits the road directly in front of the tank as opposed to going straight through and brewing him up. Now he's then presented with a dilemma: do I get out of the hatch at the top of the tank and get myself a machine gun, or do I stay here and wait for the second shell? He opts for the latter, which is astonishingly brave, and the Tiger fires again. Fortunately, the shell goes through the turret, and as I say, Jock kicked open the hatch on the bottom of this burning tank to crawl out underneath. Now immediately behind there is another open tank. This is a gun's tank, a Cromwell, to match in with the rest of the unit. and it backs around the corner, thinking, well, we're in the main street now, and he's trying to get into one of the back streets so he can't be shot at. But as he goes around the corner, a flagstone gets caught in the track, and all of a sudden the tank stops across the road. So the Tiger's now barrelling down the high street. Unfortunately, it spots the Cromwell as it is across the road. The commander of the tank gets everyone to bail out, and the Tiger puts a shell into that as well. So at this point we get our proper piece of luck. At the bottom of the high street, 400 yards beyond, is a chap called Stan Lockwood. He is in a Firefly which is arranged to fire up the high street. Now, with all the other things that have been going on, he couldn't see up the high street until the Tiger fired at the OP Cromwell down the side street. And at that point, enough of the smoke cleared for him to put 2 shots towards the Tiger. He does score a hit, but it's probably just a ricochet because the Tiger then starts to fire back. The Tiger hits the building next to Stan Lockwood, but at this point Wittmann has worked out, I'm not going to go any further because there is something serious down the bottom of the high street, and it's the first thing that could do something unpleasant to me. At which point he starts to come back up the high street. Now you remember Pat Tyres had backed off the road and had the good fortune of not being shot. He had arranged his co-driver into the gunner's position, and they had gone out to stalk the Tiger from behind. And they had just reached the corner where the road turns into the high street when he notices the Tiger. And initially he thinks, oh, it's okay, it's going the other way. But then the smoke clears and it's very clearly coming back towards him. He manages to fire another 2 shots at the Tiger. It's frontal armour this time, it's 4 inches thick. They bounce off, and he's immediately shot back. His tank is hit and he's blown out at the top along with a couple of his crew, and manages to get out. So the Tiger is now coming back out of the high street to get itself out of danger. As it comes back past the burning vehicles of the Rifle Brigade, we believe that an anti-tank gun which he had missed has been remanned by a sergeant of the Rifle Brigade, and he manages to get a shot which disables Wittmann's tank. Wittmann is now separated from his troop. He has made a cardinal sin. He has gone into a built-up area in a tank that's designed for open country warfare, and he has separated himself from his command. They're up here doing their job. He is down there being heroic. He has probably taken out 7 or so British tanks. He's taken out a load of transport, but done nothing much more than that. And his only option is to run away. Which he does. He heads off towards Orbois, which is where Panzerlehr, the division we were trying to encircle with 7th Armoured Division, is based, leaving his troops abandoned up here. Right, so at this point, the initial part of the battle is over. We've got a detached group of tanks up on the hill who are unable to get back into town because they're being engaged by the Tigers over there. We've got the rest of our column over there who can't come up to support them. The only thing they can do is put down some supporting fire because they've got another OP Cromwell up here putting down fire for the artillery. At that point, we are short of time, so I'm going to have to stop, but I will continue for the rest of the story down this afternoon in the Mary, where they're around the model. I believe we're doing the Westminster Dragoons first, and then the Sharpshooter contingent. So thank you for listening. Thank you.